And I mean, that's like what level of, and that's a problem I have with a lot of like religious type folk. They get so wrapped up in whatever it is they think is the truth, which is typically just a excuse me, a dogma or a uh, something that's fed to them by their
Hmm.
leadership.
Right.
Um, and it's like, oh, and they don't ever like search things for themselves
Hmm.
in the scriptures or in anything else, and then you end up with dead kids.
Well, when your church is telling you science is anti-God, then it's just a hop, skip, and a jump to I shouldn't take my kids to the doctor. But
Yeah,
they don't
like
even
Ken.
stop to think that, hey, maybe God gave humans the ability to understand the natural world so that we can have science and medical
There's
science, and maybe this is God's will.
there's a quote from Ken Ham that says when it's the Bible, when it's God versus the scientist, who do we trust? God. And it's like that is what you just said isn't doesn't make any sense because you're assuming that it's God versus the scientist in a situation.
But it's
It
actually
has to
your
be that way.
interpretation of the Bible versus the scientist, and you could
Yeah.
be wrong.
Yeah, you could absolutely be wrong.
Now, if God comes down from heaven and says this scientist and all of his theories are absolutely wrong, I'll take God's word on it. But he's never done that. So until then, my daughter is still going to the doctor when necessary.
Right. I like to think as science as complementary as, it gives us it kind of it gives us the why, whereas before, like maybe civilization wasn't they weren't going to they couldn't handle the truth, if that makes sense. For instance, like you would have witch doctors. If you felt sick, they would give you, a moldy piece of bread. Well, penicillin, wasn't, officially discovered until, whenever. But I mean,
Yeah.
that's what that mold was containing, penicillin, and people felt better, you know. So science is not, like I said, pretty much what we've been saying this whole time. It's not science versus God. It's, I mean, they work together, you know.
Whenever you see a conflict in there, it's because of somebody's interpretation of one or the other.
I
Because
would agree with
science
that.
is actual science is not going to contradict the Bible, but science is, like you said, it's a process. The real scientific laws do not contradict what God says,
So yeah,
but
I've got
our
I've got my
understanding of that
I've
changes.
I've obviously got my faith, and but I also like believe in the scientific process because it's got the goods. It has shown that it produces positive effects, and it shows that it is a form of finding the truth.
The
So
scientific method is all about logic and reasoning, and God made logic and reasoning. He gave it to us. We should probably utilize it.
yeah, so whatever truth I find, because God is the source of truth, that's going to be what the truth is. And I've purposefully tried to counter my own beliefs like all the time. That's like, what do I believe? Okay, let me just smash other things against it until until I figure out what the truth is. And it's like even throughout everything that I've read and studied and experienced, it's like my faith still holds up.
Yeah, and that's the best thing because some people have such a weak, superficial, um, faith or religion or denomination that they hold on to, and so they don't ever question anything, and they don't, whatever the pastor says, whatever, the youth leader says, whatever the deacon says, whatever, you know, Mr. Title says, they're just going to hold on to that and apply that to their lives instead of seeking the truth themselves, and instead of searching the scriptures as the Bereans did, looking for the proofs, and they're there, but they're just so scared of. I feel like they're so scared of any confrontation that it might break.
Yeah, and
They're
then
shatter their
not
entire worldview.
and oh goodness, people are so scared of having their worldview shattered, and that's like honestly, if your worldview is capable of being shattered, you should probably do that.
Get a new one.